Good afternoon, Britannia, and hello to the rest of the world. Welcome to 2CTV, your global news channel. Over the last few days, we've had a lot of debates around what's happened in Australia with a couple of so-called nurses in a hospital in New South Wales who decided to do a bit of an anti-Semitic rant online while they were talking to an Israeli. They didn't know he was an Israeli, of course, and then the whole thing kicked off from there. There's been a lot of reaction to this. A lot of people came out to condemn this, apart from a certain group of people. Now, those who claim to be moderate in the Islamic world, those who say, well, we're not actually a terrorist, we're not really that radical, we just believe in our faith, in our religion. They seem to be very offended that these two nurses have been exposed. Now, following this incident, they have both been fired and essentially been cancelled. But in terms of getting sacked, obviously that's the normal procedure, because they in this rant they were saying, well, if we see anybody who is Jewish and Israeli, they're not going to survive in our hospital. It's a direct threat. It's inciting violence. The problem with this is that the Islamic world, who claim to be moderate, those who are in Australia, are saying that that's not fair on the nurses. We have their lawyer, we have a video to show you from their lawyer, who's come out, Ramina Sultan, who's offended. The Islamic leaders who claim to be moderate, whatever that means, have come out to speak out against this. And somehow the authorities in Australia don't have any urgency to do a crackdown on these so-called moderate Islamic leaders. These people are inside society in Australia. Now, surely we have to talk about the national security issues and, just generally speaking, the safety of people, but the culture in Australia. For example, Ahmad Rashid Nadir, one of their nurses, has been rushed to the hospital. Some of you already know this, apparently because of mental health concerns. The police also said that a number of items have been taken from their possessions for further examination. The investigation continues to find out how radical these people were, because if you had met these two nurses, you might assume, well, look at them, they're working in a hospital in Australia, they're working hard, they're contributing to the system, right? So you might put them in the category of the so-called moderate Islamic. So they're not openly terrorists, right? They're not doing anything like that. They're just dressed like you, they walk around, they obviously it's supposed to be treating patients unless you're a Jew. But obviously there's a big problem here. For example, the Muslim Association Secretary General, Kamal Khair, said, has anyone checked on their mental health? Has anyone checked on their welfare at the moment? The concern seems to be mostly focused on the nurses rather than Jews who live in Australia, or Jews who visit Australia. Normal people in Australia, the focus should be on them. Now, there hasn't been any focus on these so-called Islamic moderates, right? But we are here to talk about this. This is their lawyer, Ramina Sultan. Ramia Sultan. She made a video on social media wearing a kafir. Obviously, because it's appropriate. Her job as a lawyer is supposed to do law, but she's also a political activist. Reminds us of that Islamic lawyer and activist in Manchester who represented the two Islamic brothers, who then actually lost his job anyway because he was an idiot. And now he starts a new political party, Islamic Independent Political Party. But let's go to Ramia and see what she had to say.
So I take it that most of us would have now been exposed to the video that's circulating concerning the two Sydney-based nurses who were engaged in a conversation with an Israeli blogger. Yes, it was a very concerning, disturbing conversation. However, without doubt, it would have been provocative. It would have been one intended to entrap these two contributors. And let me tell you, for someone who's been involved in the movement, we have heard and seen far worse come from the other side. We have had threats. We have had blatant killing, a genocide. We had hospitals completely held hostage, massacred, a live genocide being live streamed, and complete silence by media outlets, by our leadership here. And here you have a social media interaction, miraculously surface on all media outlets and become a big issue. We've seen far worse. Now, regardless of this, my message is to young people in particular. You are being watched, and nothing and nowhere is safe. There is no such thing as a safe space. Do not trust anyone on social media. Don't engage in conversations like this, seeking to especially entrap you. Will be ultimately used against you and potentially used to completely, impact on your future. So we don't live in a situation where you can freely have a conversation, whether you mean things or don't mean things. If you are Palestinian or pro-Palestinian, if you are an Arab, and especially if you are a Muslim, God forbid, you will be met with the high end of the stick. So don't take the risk and don't engage.
Isn't this against what she practices? She's the lawyer. She does law in Australia. Isn't law in general, in a civilized democratic world, in the Western world, supposed to be not just obviously being impartial when it comes to actually practicing it, but actually promoting the law of the land, not trying to help those who want to be against the law with loopholes. So her job should be to say, don't incite violence to everybody, right? But she says, those who want to incite violence, be careful who you talk to. Don't change your views. Still hate the Jews apparently, but just be careful who you talk to, because there's no safe space for anti-Semitism, for example, or just anti-Australia, anti-West. Yes, there shouldn't be a safe space for people who want to do violence or incite violence. It's insanity. How is she still allowed to practice law? Firstly, how is she allowed to still stay in Australia? That's another question. But it's not just people like her. When you meet her on the street, she might just seem like, well, she's wearing a hijab, but she doesn't look like a terrorist, so she's allowed to live in Australia, right? But we have to do a deeper investigation into the communities, into these people, especially those who hold a position of power. For example, we have other people, including the leader of the Muslim vote in Australia. They literally have a group called the Muslim Vote. They have it in almost every country in the West as well. And this is supposed to be to infiltrate the democratic system, to say, hey, we're not ISIS. But no, we are doing elections. We are doing campaigning. That's all we are doing. And you might be like, well, fair enough. You just have your own faith, just like, Catholics and Jews and this and that. But there is a massive difference between those who are just having their groups based on their faith and religions and those who are doing it because of a political ideology coming from the 7th century. Let's go to this guy, the leader of the Muslim vote, because he's not too happy.
Social media post involving two nurses making comments about Israeli patients was never meant to be literal or intended to be a threat to patient care. In current times, in these times in which a genocide is unfolding live on our screens, emotions can sometimes get the better of anybody. Though the most revealing aspect of the political outrage is the speed, intensity, and coordination of the response from figures who have been otherwise largely indifferent, weak, or outright complicit and enabling in the face of mass atrocities. The Prime Minister weighed in. The New South Wales Health Minister, Ryan Park, declared it was the most vile thing he'd ever seen. Really? Yet these same voices who claim to be the arbiters of moral decency have remained silent, hesitant, when confronted with the most egregious acts of violence committed by Israel. This isn't just hypocrisy, and it isn't just a double standard. It's something far more calculated. It's an orchestrated moral framework where outrage is not dictated by the severity of an action, but by the one who commits it. An emotional lapse sparks immediate national outrage, but a recorded war crime An Israeli soldier leveling an entire neighborhood before blowing a kiss to his girlfriend elicits no comment, no condemnation, and no political reckoning. In Australia, attacks on Muslim women in broad daylight, a bomb planted on a vehicle with a Palestinian flag, a school vandalized with hate speech, and an attempted murder of a Muslim cleric highlights the precise pattern of selective outrage, because we heard nothing. In Gaza, Muslim professionals have been deliberately targeted, bombed, executed while treating the wounded, all erased from the public discourse. Where were the health ministers to comment about this? What we are witnessing is a hierarchy of moral concern, where acts of violence, discrimination, dehumanization are not evaluated as they should be, but on the identity of those involved. Certain people can never be victims, no matter how brutal their suffering. But on the flip side, specific perpetrators will never be held accountable, no matter how blatant their crimes. This is why we can't simply call it bias or hypocrisy. These terms are too weak, too passive, and too forgiving. What we're seeing is the deliberate weaponization of outrage, deployed selectively to shield the powerful and vilify the marginalized. It's an ideological project that dictates which lives are mourned, which injustices are condemned, and which atrocities are permitted to continue unchecked. This is not just an inconsistency, this is by design. So we refuse to accept a political and media landscape where Muslims are only visible when they are being condemned, but invisible when they are being killed. We aim to expose this manufactured morality and challenge this strategic silence. The federal election 2025 is fast approaching.
There we go. Election time is coming. It's all about power. Who started this? Did these guys start it? Nope. Somebody else started this in the 7th century. Started in the 7th century. It hasn't stopped. And if you go and talk to those who claim to be moderate, if you want to check to see what about moderate means, by the way, if you want to really check to see if they are, just ask them what they think of Jews. Okay? That's it. Just ask them. What do they think of Jews? That should be the easiest test. Would they be okay if their daughter dates a Jewish man? Or the other way around? Obviously, that's not. It's going to be a very uncomfortable conversation inside certain Islamic families. But that's the easiest way to do a test. Now, all this is happening. I can see in the live chat. I'll get some reactions in a second, because I saw a comment which is a little bit juicy. Juicy-toosey. Who was it? The comments are going really fast. So, a lot of people are talking about, obviously, the Islamic leader, right? Now, this man, who doesn't know how to trim his beard, has a legitimate position in Australian society. And at this point, if you want to talk about the threat, there we go, I found that comment. The threat to Australians, you have to talk about these guys and their power. For example, look at this comment. Somebody's not too happy. Not too happy, right? I said, DJ Ninja Remix Master, this TV channel needs to be taken down. Again, this is the same mentality since the 7th century. Intolerance, hatred. If you don't want to hear something uncomfortable, just go la 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 la. Cancel it. Just cancel. Because it's uncomfortable. That's the same approach that's been used for centuries and centuries. Debate is not allowed. Criticism is not allowed. The word Islamophobia was created to do this, to crush the debate. Because criticizing ideologies or mocking ideologies, that is not allowed. Every idea should be criticized. Every idea should be mocked. Now, let's see what you guys are thinking. First, let's get some super people. Toddy Terrence, thank you, saying, I think it's about time we had a prime minister who's brave enough to expose Islam, the ideology, for what it is, and for the whole world to see. Well, the rise of social media and new media has already started this. This is just the beginning of the fight back against the ideology, because for decades and centuries it went unchallenged. And most of the time over the last few centuries, because the world was more isolated, a lot of the people in the Christian Europe didn't really see people from the Islamic world. But obviously over the last few decades we've been more exposed, and finally, you are being challenged. Sheila says, what if they had killed the Jewish patients as they claimed they had? Would that still be unfair dismissal? Well, I believe inciting violence by default is already criminal anyway, so it's dangerous. And it's just insanity. I don't really care who you are and who you want to incite violence against. It's still wrong. If a Jewish person goes out to basically say anybody who's an Arab, we should go and kill them, that's just disgusting. That's also wrong. Or I don't know, a Protestant says that about a Catholic. It's just weird. It's 2025. Calm down. That sort of barbaric behavior should not exist. Jenny says, Tusi, you make bad news easier to take in. Thank you. You're gonna have to. I mean, they're a bunch of clowns anyway. You're gonna have to laugh at them. Gila also says that she's wrong. There is a safe place for them back in the Middle East. The thing is, most of the Middle East is also changing. So they are also not safe in the Middle East. So countries like Bahrain, UAE, Saudi Arabia, and many other places have been doing better crackdown on radicals than Europeans. Why do you think they want to move to Europe and the West? Because they can't live in those places anymore. You can't even have the Palestinian flag in Saudi Arabia. You'll get arrested. So there's a reason. They are pushing them out, rightly so. They're coming to the West and we're just opening the doors. You don't have to open the doors. It's absolutely in the interest of the Middle East to kick them out. But it doesn't mean you have to open the door. Just keep the borders closed. Now, Helen says, the Muslims' ability to rationalize themselves as the victims in every and all scenarios, no matter what is truly impressive. Yes, a thing to be held. Again, this has been, it's just psychological for centuries and centuries. You always, you start something as the villain, but then you play the victim card. It's genius. It's something that even communists never used. Communists don't tend to play the victim card in that sense. I mean, those who are left-wing, they love victim cards, but not the actual ideology of Marxism. They were always very proactive. They're not reactionary people, right? They're always very proactive. They're always very passionate about their cause, their Marxist cause, and they always say, we will fight, we will fight, we will fight. And even when they lose, which the communists that have been losing, in terms of the revolutionary communists for decades and decades, they never give up. They're very resilient. Weird, but resilient. Having said that, not all ideologies are the same. So you get these guys who continue to play the victim card from the beginning. Let's get some non-super chats. We got Mark saying, as an Australian, all I can say is boo effing who, you extremist scumbag. Fair enough. True. Walt Davis says, Muslims are always anti-Semitic. They just think being moderate is keeping quiet until they have to deal with this sort of issue. Every Muslim will follow the Quran to the letter. No, that bit is not true. No matter what. That bit is not true. A lot of so people who are born into the Islamic world, Islamic families, also depending on what country and what class of culture, the huge chunk of those who are just born into it, they haven't even read it. You think they haven't actually been understood it. So because you are being taught in schools and by your Islamic preachers, you just listen to them and they interpret it the way they want it, right? So they hide some of the bad stuff and they just say, look, this is just about peace, submission. It's supposed to be a good thing apparently. But you will be surprised if you actually start having conversations with a lot of the Islamic people, and these are the people who are not basically, they don't know anything. You will be surprised to find out they don't know their own books. Now, not all of them. So many of them are very much well-versed. And by the way, those who from childhood get told to memorize it, because that's also a thing as in school, memorize it, it still doesn't mean they understand it. Because the way that the book is written is chaotic. For those who understand the book, it's chaotic, it makes no sense. Chapter 2 and chapter 3 make no sense. There is no order. It's just crazy stuff, right? So it's very difficult. You have to actually pay attention if you want to understand what it says. And a lot of them haven't studied it properly. But yes, anti-Semitism is just part of it. As I said, it's the easiest test. If you meet someone who says, yeah, I'm against Al-Qaeda, for example, fine. Say, would you be okay to share a house with a Jew? See what they say. Or someone eating bacon near you. Deport the lawyer as well. Well, that's the... Yes. Yeah, that should be the next on the list as well. Another super chat from Israel saying, how are you doing? Love your channel. I'm very good. Thank you very much. And Heather says, I was an RN, and if I said this, I would expect to lose my license and be fired. Yeah. Tesbot says, side note, David Wood banned from the UK. Criminal record, presumably he's trying to help us, yet government lets in people who hate and want to destroy us. Let's get a couple of non-super chats again. What's this? To the fellow Muslims spoke the truth. Maya, you don't seem to have a serious side without making fun. Yeah, because you only live once. I will make fun of everything and everyone. I hope people eventually see through you. I mean, it's kind of obvious. That's the whole point of the channel. When there's a doom and gloomy nonsense going on, we bring humor. And I make fun of everything. And I don't take things seriously. I think people should already see through me. It's kind of obvious. Oh, what is that? Oh, did I do that? Wait, did you see that? I did something. Something came on the screen. Yeah, see? Oh, I think it might have been this. I don't know what I did. Anyway, discovering new things on this software. Yeah, so I'm not really sure you've done any sort of investigation. This is kind of obvious. That's the whole point of the channel. Anyway. Also, like someone said, follow Apostle Prophets. I do need to catch up with him because he's supposed to be doing... I'm going to out you, Redvan. I'm going to out you right now because he's supposed to be doing a segment for us on TCTV Plus. And this boy, Apostle Prophet, is a very busy boy. He goes around a lot. So I'm gonna catch him. I'm going to corner him and make sure he actually does. I was supposed to go to Germany actually to meet him last week, but unfortunately that wasn't possible. But hopefully I'm going to drag him to London and do a big interview again. Obviously he's been on the channel before, but we're going to do something together, more collaboration as well. All right, hold your thumb up and it will appear on your screen. Is that a new thing? No? Something happened. I did something that the thumbs up came up. No. I'm going to go crazy now. I was just thinking, what happened to you? Nice to see you back. Well, where did I go? I'm pretty sure I've been here the whole time. Every day, throughout the day. Did I disappear without knowing again? Did I get drunk? Did I think I was doing live streams without doing the actual live streams? All right, Darren says, good day, Maya. Love you. Love your channel. But these poor buggers are missing out on bacon. You have not experienced life if you have not had bacon. Wouldn't that alone be enough to leave the so-called religion of peace? Evil, disgusting, smelly idiots. Now, all right, where are we with the... John says, so due to the promotion of immigration by Jewish groups, here we go, we are now going to have Islamophobia laws. It's not Jewish groups. They're a bunch of liberal idiots. So actually, let me show you. So it's kind of fascinating. People think Brits, you have different type of Brits. You have different type of Americans. You have different type of Christians, right? You have different type of Islamic people. But somehow, when it comes to the Jews, you only have one group of Jews. That's not how it works. They genuinely believe you only have basically all Jews think the same and are the same. Firstly, even if you go to Israel, you'll be surprised about the differences. But even in the West, outside of Israel, you have liberal Jews, you have conservative Jews, you have obviously pro-Israel, some anti-Israel weirdos. But for example, look at these guys, these liberal Jew weirdos. So Neo actually posted this. So there was the group. You can't see the actual banner. There's a banner underneath that picture. It says we are Jews and we are pro, I don't know, immigration, right? They basically promote immigration. So Neo said the worst Jews by far, self-destructive and naive. And I did say these liberal Jews are a bunch of idiots. Their ideology is ruining the West. Yes, absolutely. But it's not because they're Jews. It's because they're liberal. That's the point of it. So you have the same thing with Christians. You've got liberal Christians who promote mass migration and open borders. It's not like all Jews want open borders. Liberal Jews want open borders. Obviously, conservative Jews want stronger borders. All right. Nurses won't have a good time in Australia now. The thing is, they have to be completely investigated and prosecuted. That's the main thing. The law needs to be respected. Did someone say radical Muslims and good Muslims and just bad Jews? And just bad Jews? Yeah, make no sense. Yeah, just all bad Jews, right? Ah, God. Where with you guys? Somebody says, doctor says sleeper cells in hospitals as well. No. So to be fair, the sleeper cells as a concept mostly applies to fighters, those who would fight, those who would do actual terrorism. And this is the whole problem of the debate, because a lot of the people in the establishment are focusing on terrorism. Oh, anybody who's going to blow up somebody. You forgot about the other level, the other category of the people who might not do that proactively. They might not go around blow things up, but if they could, they would do harm. So they're not necessarily sleeper cells. They're just your average people just going around who are being anti-Semitic anyway. And you think they seem nice because, well, they just wear normal clothes, walking around. He might be a doctor or a nurse. You have to vet people's backgrounds better if you want to live in a civilized society. Learn from UAE, learn from Saudi Arabia, learn from Bahrain and many other places. On that note, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I'm Maya Tusi, and we are the media.